Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today we're going to be doing a cost breakdown on the Holley Sniper EFI Swap that I just finished up on my Bronco. Now, if you're new to the channel, this is my 1988 Ford Bronco. I picked this thing up about 3 years ago for 300 bucks. The interior was absolutely trash. I had to completely regut it, clean and disinfect everything, put in new carpet before I could do anything else to it. At this point, I've replaced pretty much everything on this Bronco except for the engine block itself. I've done a complete Super Duty axle swap on this thing. I've swapped out the transmission, I've swapped out the transfer case, and now I've swapped out the full EFI system. I never had luck with it. It ran like crap, it never idled right, it was never right for me. After doing some further research, I found out that 1988 was the first year that the 351 ever had EFI in these Ford trucks, so this is very much a prototype, and Ford didn't really know what they were doing back in the day. So far with the little driving I've done, this is tenfold, 20, 30 times better. It's not even comparable. I don't really have any regrets going this route. There is a few other options you can do instead of doing a Holley Sniper, which we'll dive into after we talk about how much this whole thing cost. Okay, so obviously the first thing we have to talk about is the Holley Sniper itself. I actually got this thing for a killer deal on Facebook Marketplace. It came out of a giveaway bullnose Bronco that was super clean. It was like a frame-up restoration. Beautiful truck. The mechanic working on it said that the winner of the giveaway thought that an old school carbureted truck should have an old school carburetor in. So the mechanic's job was to take off the Sniper and put a carburetor on it. So I was able to get this thing for a killer deal. So this Holley Sniper kit comes with the Sniper EFI carburetor, the Hyper Spark ignition system. So I got a distributor, ignition control box, I think it's a smart coil, I don't know, I can't remember exactly, and a full wiring harness for both systems. This whole kit, brand new, with the inline fuel pump that I'm running that came with the package deal, is $1,850 online, brand new. I paid $1,000 flat for it. I did have to drive almost 2 hours to go get it, but that's part of the marketplace adventures, right? So yeah, we got that for a really killer deal. And now we gotta move on to the fuel system. After we ripped out the entire EFI system, I decided to simplify everything and run custom AA lines all the way back on the frame. So I used the provided inline fuel filter and inline fuel pump, just an off-the-shelf Holley universal pump setup. The fuel filter and the fuel pump could have went in the factory inline location pretty easily on these brick nose trucks. So you didn't really have to go this route. I just wanted to because my fuel system was already hacked into from the beginning. When we first tried to get this thing to start, we found a cut fuel line. So it was very hack job its entire life. So I just wanted to simplify it and have some nice clean AM lines. If you watch my full video series on me putting this together, I tried to integrate a really nice fuel pump to go in the tank instead of in line. I was unsuccessful going that approach. I ended up breaking the fuel sender, trying to modify it, and I ended up having to buy a new fuel sender. So total cost of fuel system is $252 plus my $100 fuel sender that I messed up on. And in reality, I spent like an extra $340 trying to get a nicer setup than what was provided, but we're not gonna count that. So another big cost saving I had on this project was my intake manifold. Since this Bronco came EFI, I had the big giant intake manifold that curved up like that. So we had to swap it to a carbureted setup. Now, there's definitely cheap ways to get one of these. You can go to the junkyard, find a 351 at the junkyard and pull the intake manifold off of that. It's kind of harder to find carbureted 351s at the junkyard these days, but that is always a possibility. I was really lucky and I got this intake manifold for free from my buddy Lance because it came off of an engine I gave him for free that came from my buddy Chad, who gave me a small block ZF5 for free, which is crazy. Go check out that video if you haven't seen it yet. I don't know the exact brand on this intake manifold. I don't know the exact specs on it. I know it's a dual plane intake manifold, which basically I believe just divides the V's. Looking out online, finding some that are similar, it looks like Summit has their own brand of one of these, which very well could be what this one is. Looks like it's around 250 bucks. I got that for free. So cost-wise, really saved me some money there. I also found these chrome valve covers on Marketplace. They were new old stock, so they were brand new in box. I got them for 30 bucks. Looking online, some generic just chrome valve covers are 80 bucks. Yeah, save some good amount of money on the intake side. Total cost for me for my intake swap, including these breathers and gaskets for the intake manifold and valve cover, $140 into this. Not bad. Another honorable mention in this swap, because I did it during that time, was my alternator upgrade. As you can see, this is not the factory brick nose alternator. This is a OBS alternator, otherwise known as a 3G swap. There's a few options online looking up an alternator upgrade. A lot of people basically buy this like universal style alternator and like clock it and reconfigure it to work with the factory bracket. I actually just took the OBS bracket off and used this OBS alternator. So now I have the replaceability of an OBS alternator. I can go to AutoZone and get this at any time. I don't have to like, you know, buy an alternator, a specific alternator, reclock it and then put it back on. This was also a freebie upgrade from my buddy. I got it from a truck engine. This was about, usually it's like a $300 swap, but I was able to do this for free. The only downside to this is I'm running the smog pump just dry because of the way the idler and tensioner is on that bracket setup. I have to get an idler pulley, which is about $200, and I just didn't want to spend that kind of money. So yeah, untraditional way of doing a 3G swap on these brick noses, but it's like you can go to the junkyard and get the bracket and everything you need to swap it over. It just seems like a cheaper way to do it and more efficient too, because like I said, you can just buy this alternator at a parts store if it fails and plug it right in. So yeah, this cost me, the only thing this cost me was a $40 belt because I had to get a different belt size to run the OBS bracket pulley configuration. And that brings us to wiring on this thing. The wiring is pretty straightforward on this thing, to be honest with you. The Sniper comes with a full kit. It comes with harnesses, so not a whole lot to wire. You do have to run a wire to the fuel pump and you have to tie in an ignition source. But other than that, it's pretty much plug and play. So I needed a little bit of consumables. I needed some wire. So we'll say $60-ish for consumables. That might be a little high, but I try to get quality butt connectors and stuff like that. So it might be accurate, I'm not sure. Another cost to that is a GPS speedometer I purchased doing this swap because my speedometer never functioned properly. So with the cap to the transfer case and the GPS speedometer, that was another $50. And then I had to spend $20 to buy a really nice weld-on O2 sensor bung. So we'll call it 120 bucks for electrical. It sounds high, but that's probably pretty close to what it was, which really isn't that bad considering, you know, we kind of just redid the entire engine management system on this thing. So keep that in mind. So that leaves us with two systems left, which is coolant and spark. Starting with spark, I didn't really have to buy a whole lot because I already got a distributor and all that in the Sniper kit. But I did have to buy new spark plug wires. I bought the MSD superconductor wires. They were recommended by Holley for a nice EMI resistant wire. Because there's a computer sitting in your engine bay, spark plugs produce 1,000 volts of electricity to spark. There could be a lot of noise interference and the Sniper could be getting some inaccurate readings if you don't have these shielded properly. So it's very important to get these nice spark plug wires and make sure that you have spark plugs that are a resistant style. I also bought some really cheapo heat shields on Amazon. To be honest, I don't think they're gonna do anything because they were $15. And if you look anywhere else, they're about $100. So, but since I cheaped out on the spark plug heat shields, I'm only about 110 bucks into the spark system. Should be more, but it's okay. And lastly, that just leaves us with coolant, which the cooling system got a little pricey. You have to drain the coolant and swap the intake manifold. There is cost of coolant, and then while I was in here, I bought new heater core lines because mine were very, very sad. I had to buy some NPT plugs for the intake manifold, and I had to buy a barb adapter for the heater core lines because I didn't want to use the one on the factory intake manifold. That leaves us with our cooling system at 85 bucks. I almost forgot to talk about the throttle system. It started with the universal throttle cable and bracket I got from O'Reilly's. After messing with the universal throttle cable, cutting it to length, getting it to fit, I quickly realized it was not going to work at all. It made too sharp of a corner for the inner cable to move freely, and that was a problem. I ended up ordering a bullnose throttle cable out of a bullnose Bronco, and that worked perfectly after I made a custom mounting tab for it and put a ball end on the throttle. Total cost of the throttle system was $100, including the extra $40 I spent on that universal throttle cable. And that's pretty much all the systems I had to dive into on this Sniper swap. And that leaves my grand total to $1,800, which really isn't bad at all considering the Sniper kit new is $1,800. So if you were to copy this build exactly to the T, but buy everything brand new, the alternator, the intake manifold, the valve cover gaskets, everything I got for a good deal or free. If you bought all that new, you'd be around $35-ish, $100, $3,000 if you didn't do an alternator swap. So that is pretty costly to kind of go back to a throttle body injection system. There is another option for these trucks, and it is from this company I've seen called 460 EFI guys. They make really cool swap kits that are kind of plug and play. They make one for the 351 where it's an intake manifold with port injection still You keep the factory ECU, they just give you a little piggyback that you gotta splice some wires into. They say you can get the swap done in a weekend. I don't know, I've never used it before personally. I've seen some reviews, I've seen some really cool things. I wouldn't mind doing that on a future truck, especially if they wanna hit me up. And their kit seems to be like completely everything you need, plug and play, $3,500 out the door. And they seem to work really good. So that's another option if you're tired of your brick nose early EFI Ford running like shit, because they do. You can go that route. You could do the Holley Sniper. You could do the, I think it's called the Holley Terminator kit, where it's a standalone ECU and you run all the wires yourself, wire in the injectors, and basically just get rid of the factory ECU. I don't know if you could really do that. I don't know if that's ever been done before, but it is an option. It's a universal standalone harness that could utilize the same software that this Sniper has. So yeah, a couple things to consider if you want something different for the truck and you're tired of what you have currently. This really isn't that bad of a swap. I had someone in the comments say that I was going backwards by going to throttle body injection instead of port injection. And I'm not really going that far backwards. I'm going backwards 1 year on this truck, literally 1 year. And the first generation EFI just wasn't that good. This thing rips. And if I had gears, this thing would be really, really fast, but I don't have gears to run. I don't have the proper gears to run these 37s. It's still super impressive. The throttle response is insane. The sound is wicked. It idles great. It's never idled good before ever. And she kind of just rips. So I'm very glad I went this route, but I don't think I would have went down this path if I had to buy a Sniper new. Buying it on Marketplace definitely made me go this route. So that's it for this one. Enjoy these few clips of me ripping on this thing so you guys can really see what the power is like. Yeah, hit me up if you got any questions on this Sniper swap or anything else about my Bronco, really. Happy to help where I can. Thanks guys for watching. See y'all next week. Peace.
Oh, man, that was crisp.